Be upstanding for the Chairman of the Council, Councillor Stuart Bailey, and the Vice Chair, Councillor Jill Butler.
Apart from Councillor Farmer and myself, I think everybody else has been sensible and not worn ties. So, oh, and Councillor Cockrell, well done. So, for those who are still wearing ties, please do feel at liberty to remove jackets and ties if you wish, but if not, that's fine. Very good. Well, welcome to our July meeting. We'll start by confirming the amended minutes from the meeting. Got two sets of minutes to sign off this evening. The meeting on the 30th of April. Can I ask for a proposer? Minutes. Thank you, Councillor Crampton, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Keeper. Are there any matters arising from those minutes that we need to be aware of? Looking at the Chief Executive? No. No. Fine. Then I will. Is everybody happy that they're a correct record of our meeting? Well, nobody said not, so I will sign the minutes. And then the minutes of the 21st of May. I have a proposer for those minutes. Thank you, Councillor Southern, and the seconder. Thank you, Councillor Makepeace-Brown. And is everybody in favour of the accuracy of the minutes? I shall sign those. Chief Executive has kindly reminded me that at the beginning of the meeting I should have read out the fire evacuation procedure, which I will do now. If a fire alarm sounds during the meeting and we're not expecting a test, please leave the building at once by the nearest available exit. Escape routes are indicated by arrows on the green signs. Do not use the lifts. If anyone present has difficulty negotiating stairs, please make yourself known to community service officers who will escort you to the most appropriate staircase. When clear of the building, please meet on the assembly point on the Views Meadow where a roll will take place. And please do not re-enter the building until we're told by an officer in charge. Thank you. Item 2 on the agenda. Do we have any apologies for absence?
This evening we received apologies from Councillors Coburn, Collins, Crisp, Delaney, Hale, Harwood, Radley, Taylor and Wildsmith.
Are there any further apologies that haven't been received yet? We are caught at this consequence of having a meeting at the beginning of the school holidays, I think. Any declarations of interest? Any members looking at the agenda have any disclosable pecuniary, any other interests? Please declare those now. If there's any item during the agenda that we move to and you realise, oh, I've got an interest, please make that known at that point. Thank you. Okay, we move to item 4, which is questions by the public. And we've got 3 questions from Councillor Merrick Williams, who's Chair of Winchfield Parish Council. Welcome, Councillor Merrick Williams. Would you like to give us your first question?
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. It's, I guess, nice to be back again after a few years. No doubt you'll see more of me over the coming 18 months. Yes. Our first question is the local timetable, as we have seen it in the PID, states that there will be a consultation on the proposed plan, content and evidence commencing on the 19th of October, unless, of course, there is a more up-to-date information on the date, which I'm not aware of, and I'd be grateful for that help. The declared aim of that consultation will be to test options, including key spatial choices, as defined in that PID. So the question is, when will HDC publish the proposed sites that have been put forward as part of the evidence base for that public consultation?
Thank you. Councillor Cockrell, would you like to give us a response?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and welcome back, Councillor Williams. Thank you for all three questions. I'll say that so I don't have to say that three times. So in answer to the first question, so some good progress is being made on local plan. We expect to publish site information as part of the October consultation once it's ready and has been properly checked through. That will give residents, members and stakeholders such as yourself and the parishes a clear early view of the possible site options or a long list of sites that are being considered. It will not be a final list of proposed allocations, but it will be an important and positive step in opening up the evidence or opening up the discussion. The preferred strategy and any proposed allocations will come later next year. By then, we will have had the benefit of consultation responses and further technical work. And that's exactly how this process should work. It means the decisions that are taken will be shaped by evidence, engagement, and proper testing before the final plan is submitted in March 2028.
Could I just have a quick supplementary, if I may?
Yeah.
Just to confirm what I've just heard, that the October to November consultation, as previously advertised, is going ahead on those dates, and that there will be a degree of presentation of the sites in as part of that. That's what I heard. Can I just confirm that?
That is correct. That is the timetable we're working to. Yes.
Councillor Williams, would you like to give your second question?
Certainly. Well, in part you've answered already, so I'll ask it anyway since it's on the sheet. Please explain the progress that's been achieved in creating the overall evidence base for the local plan, and when will you publish those reports? And obviously, in terms of the October consultation, are there any significant ones that would be missing or not?
So again, I can say we are making some good progress on the evidence base. At this stage, it's quite high level work, and it's proportionate to where we are in terms of the government's new untested local plan process. We're pretty much figuring this out as we go along. So there's already been a lot of useful work. We've completed the early scoping consultation, we've published the local plan timetable, and we've appointed some external consultants to support us. We're now actively progressing the main evidence needed for the October consultation and later stages. This is a substantial programme of work, and it is moving forward well. This work, which will remain ongoing over the next 18 months, includes, but is not, I have to say, necessarily limited to, housing and employment needs, land availability, infrastructure, transport, landscape, heritage, flood risk, water resources, wastewater, climate change, and viability. Council's approach is to publish evidence when it is complete and robust enough to support the relevant consultation stage. Where work is still in progress, the Council will explain the current position clearly and update the evidence base as it develops.
Thank you. Given the lack of clarity from the government on the procedures and process for this new method of doing the plan, have you obtained any advice from PINS that gives you some confidence that you're not out on a limb somewhere because of the lack of government direction?
So we have been working quite closely with actually a number of consultants, planning consultants, in the preparation of the local plan. And we have been consulting as far as we can with our colleagues in PINS and the government. A lot of this is still under discussion, as it were, but we are confident that we understand the broad requirements. That there's an element, as always, of we'll do the work that we believe to be necessary. And if something crops up that we are unaware of later in the process, we will need to build that in. But we are confident that we have got the right studies that we need to progress the local plan at this stage.
Finally, we read that the Basingstoke and Dean Borough Council has declared a significant problem in their ability to proceed with their local plan, given significant problems to solve water supply issues for new homes. So will you be able to confirm that given this level of concern, as a matter of priority, you will update the existing water cycle study for the district as part of the evidence base prior to the October consultation?
Yes, there has been quite a lot of consultation and discussion around this, and we are aware that it is a significant problem, not just for Basingstoke and Dean, but us and a number of other local authorities. We are currently looking at doing a water study as part of our evidence base, and we're in consultation with South East Water and infrastructure suppliers as the schemes develop and as the plan develops. So it's a live issue. We haven't got a solution yet, but obviously to some extent, the local plan evidence base will drive the solution that's needed, and to some extent vice versa. But it's a live topic that we are aware of, yes.
Indeed, finally, just as to follow on that, really, we read in the major development that's just been pronounced. I won't mention its name, therefore I'm not tripping into planning issues. There are expressions of limitations in what both South East Water to deliver and Thames Water can do to remove. With 15,000 homes as a target, how will you solve that problem with these two organisations, one of which is near bankrupt?
I think the basic point here is that the water companies have a responsibility, indeed a duty, to meet the requirements of the local residents. We as a local planning authority have a duty to make sure that we are fulfilling our housing needs. Where there is a conflict between the level of infrastructure required and the level of infrastructure that's available to meet the needs, that's where there is a live discussion between us and the infrastructure providers about what is the art of the possible. And fundamentally, if the infrastructure is not there to support it, there is a question mark about whether or not any plan of any sort could be deemed to be sound.
Absolutely.
But that is not necessarily a question that Hart needs to answer. That is a question that needs to be answered as much by the planning inspectorate and by the water companies as anyone else.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey.
Thank you very much. We move on to questions from members. And Councillor Dawn.
Thank you, Chairman.
First question.
And there's a bit of a theme here, isn't there? Will Hart publish the evolving HELA for the August ONS to enable review and update to the current draft and thus reduce compliance and alignment risks at consultation 1 scheduled in October?
Thank you, Councillor Dawn. First of all, for the benefit of the uninitiated, HELA is the Housing, Employment and Land Availability Assessment study. And I totally understand why members might want to see that evidence as early as possible. I have to say, at this stage, the answer sadly is no. It's not yet complete. We're still working through it. And I'm not aware that the committee has specifically asked to see it in any form. I should also be clear that the governance arrangements for the local plan have already been agreed. They were discussed and unanimously endorsed by overview and scrutiny in September and then received by council when the minutes came forward. We are following the process that members agreed openly and collectively. It would not be right to move away from that agreed process now by creating a separate ad hoc route for one or any other piece of work. I do hope that reassures members that this process is being managed properly and the evidence will be brought forward at the right stage for proper consultation. On the housing and employment land availability assessment itself, again, good progress is being made. It is an important technical document and it needs to be prepared carefully so that it's accurate, clear and useful. Publishing an incomplete or unchecked version for an August committee meeting would not help members, residents or the wider local plan process. Positive position is that land availability evidence is intended to be published as part of the October consultation material. That will include site information that is both complete and properly checked. October will be the right and proper point for public and member scrutiny. The evidence will sit along the draft vision, prepared spatial strategy and other supporting material. And we will, of course, continue to brief members as the evidence develops. But in the meantime, we are hoping to arrange an all-member briefing on the forthcoming local plan in the form, as we did with the LGR approach, a session chaired by the Chairman of Overview and Scrutiny, which may or may not be a surprise to the Chairman of Overview and Scrutiny.
Councillor Doran, you have a supplementary.
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you for all of that detail. I think part of the problem is that the July ONS only very briefly mentions any progress on the local plan, and there was a suggestion that the chair would ask the sites to come through the ONS process as part of that, of what you've just described. The problem is that the consultation materials are not in the ONS plan and they're not in the Cabinet Work Programme either. I think it's very, very important that we look to deal with these things, as you said earlier, as the evidence becomes available, such that it can be checked and it will then form part of the input to the first draft of the local plan for consultation in October. So perhaps you could clarify, because under the PID at page 90, it did state that participation in workshops to discuss potential sites for the HELA was part of that original approach, which doesn't seem to be followed at the moment if it's going straight to a sort of double release. So please could you clarify how you will address non-alignment to the draft local plan with any errors, updates and corrections in the HELA that will only be published as a lump set in October?
So first of all, I have to say I think this is probably the third, maybe even the fourth, but it's definitely, I think, the third iteration of a local plan that I've seen and been involved in as a member of this council. And I can't recall, I could be wrong, particularly with the early ones back in the early 2000s, but I can't recall scrutiny committees ever discussing in detail site allocations or evidence bases as such. That always went through separate local plan steering groups, etc., as they were called back in the day. So I don't see the point in now introducing that process when we've already identified the process that we are dealing with. The second point I would say is that under the new local plan process, the October consultation is when we publish the draft, basically the draft evidence base, insofar as there may still be bits of the evidence base that needs to be published afterwards, but that's when the draft evidence base essentially is published along with the draft sites that are under consideration. The point of the consultation, Councillor Dawn, is to receive feedback on what could be improved, where there might be issues, and what do we need to do to get the plan from that draft, here's a starter for 10, to much more of a document that could be submitted to PINS. And that's when Overview and Scrutiny, members of the public and other stakeholders will be able to put forward their detailed suggestions and discussions, which will then be inputted into the process in December, once the consultation is complete, ready for us to then publish the second round of consultation, where we've taken all of that on board and explained what we've changed, what we haven't changed, etc. So that is the process. And as I say, we've agreed it in Overview and Scrutiny. It was passed through the council in minutes, and I'm not going to start changing that now because we don't have time to do that before March 2028.
Thank you. Councillor Farmer.
Chairman, I believe I have a second question.
Oh, you do? I do apologise. The first question went on so long.
Nice try. I think, Councillor Croggle, we could have a longer discussion about that first question. But on to the second one. I'm concerned that the schedule plan is not being updated on a monthly basis from what I've seen of the monthly project board reviews, and why milestone slip charts are not forming part of that reporting. Will Hart published a schedule for the local plan preparation on a monthly basis in an accessible screenshot and Microsoft project format, along with milestone slip charts.
So once again, I do understand the wish for regular assurance on the timetable. And again, I have to say the important point here is the programme is already being actively reviewed and managed through the proper governance arrangements, as we've discussed earlier. And again, I have to say that the position is actually quite positive. We've published the local plan timetable. It's on the website in the formal public programme, and it is being kept under review by officers and senior members. Internally, the project plan, we're reviewing it through the local plan governance arrangements, which again we've already discussed, which includes monthly reviews of progress, risks and dependencies in the same way that all the other projects have been managed over the last 3 years. This is a strong and practical way to manage the programme. Publishing the live project management plan every month in Microsoft project format would not actually add much for residents or indeed members. It is an internal working document and will change often. What matters is that public can see the public timetable, understand the key milestones, and be told clearly if anything material changes. We will continue to do that through the published timetable, my announcements at council, the schedule of amendments, members' briefings, and reports at key stages. If there is a material change to the timetable, it will be published and explained clearly.
Supplementary.
Thank you. Yes, I think it's a matter of confidence in all of this. And the local plan process needs, while it may be published or reviewed monthly, we're not seeing enough of that to give me confidence, certainly, and I suspect your other colleagues will be in a similar position. I think it's very important, and I've never seen a project that didn't have milestones that moved, that we understand how they're moving and in what direction and what action is being taken, and we don't have that visibility. I've said previously that I'm very happy to help in that process, and there's an awful lot of skills that I think you can draw on and experience from officers and members to try and make this process move as quickly as possible. I can see from the numbers of the values that have been published from the original set that these milestones are starting to slip, and the steering board meets in secret. There's no reporting of these things to the service boards. I have looked for it in any material detail, and I'm not going to beg for access for these things, but I do think we need to look at how we can offer and best support and assist you. So will you please review the current restrictive practices and how they appear to good people of heart?
I do get frustration, and I think if I was in your position, Councillor Dawn, I would probably be asking very similar questions on a very similar vein. I come back to the point that we have the governance arrangements in place, which we have agreed. And if we start messing around with governance arrangements now, we will end up in a place where none of us want to be, with no local plan by the time Hart vanishes into the ether. And none of us want that. We are under a time pressure. We're under a time pressure from local government reorganisation and a time pressure from the government anyway. We've got 30 months to do this, from announcing in April that we were going to do, well, actually it's when the Gateway 1 is done. We haven't got time to have lots of members looking in detail at moving charts. We are following the process. If anything materially changes, we will update you. At the moment, the key milestones which we agreed are actually being met. So we are on course. In fact, we're slightly ahead of schedule in terms of where we were expecting to be. And I say, I understand the frustrations that members might have, but this is a situation that's largely been forced on us by circumstance rather than choice.
Thank you. On something not completely different, Councillor Farmer.
And I reserve the right as chairman of Overview and Scrutiny to be surprised at anything that Councillor Cockerell may tell me. Okay, I'll read out my first question. And there is a theme, Councillor Cockerell. Can the portfolio holder for planning policy provide an update on the timetable for the new Hart District local plan and confirm whether any factors are currently causing delay or pose a credible risk of delay to future stages of the process? And can he also confirm whether the new local plan remains on track for its planned submission before March 28? And if not, what revised timetable the administration may now consider to be realistic?
I might start shortening some of this because otherwise I'll start repeating myself and members will get terribly bored. So we are obviously progressing on a new local plan. The timetable is ambitious. I wouldn't say it's unrealistic. We had that conversation, and I had that conversation with consultants who had been working on this before we started it. And they said, yeah, you know, you'll need luck and a bit of a fair wind, and you'll need to make sure that your processes are streamlined, but it can be done. And we believe it can be done. I also want to point out that the formal timeline doesn't yet get triggered until we go to Gateway 1, which is planned to be in September, and that's when you are within your sort of ticking clock from the government. Secondly, we are, as I mentioned earlier, effectively a pathfinder for the government's new and still untested plan-making regime. But taking all of that into account, where we are is pretty good. We've got a clear view of where we're going and what we need to do to get to meet our timetables. But the new local plan does remain on track against the published timetable, which includes plan submission by 31st of March 2028. The first stage of the process, including the notice of intention to commence plan making and the scoping consultation, have been completed as planned. The timetable is being actively managed and is kept under regular review, which is important because it means the risks and dependencies are being picked up early. Council is progressing our evidence work, is engaging with neighbouring councils, infrastructure providers, and our statutory bodies, as well as preparing for the next key consultation stage. And there are currently no issues that are causing delay, and the plan is progressing in line with the published timetable.
Supplementary.
Yes. Councillor Dawn has rather helpfully saved me an awful lot of preamble, but I would just add that we are elected representatives. We represent members of the public. Development and local plan is of key importance to residents and key importance to this council. And if members do not have full visibility, not just on a published timetable.
Not take the question.
I think the point is to make a supplementary question rather than a statement. And the supplementary should relate to the first question.
It does indeed relate to the timetable. Given all of that, Councillor Cockerell, will you commit to come to Overview and Scrutiny in September, such that Overview and Scrutiny can review the timetable and some more detail on the risks and movement on milestones, so that we can understand and we have an opportunity to scrutinise both on behalf of this council and on behalf of our residents?
We are having a public consultation in October, and as part of that public consultation, we will be bringing the timetable and all of the evidence base as it stands at that point to an open overview and scrutiny meeting, which will be chaired by your good self, to which all members will be able to attend and ask questions. If members of overview and scrutiny, and indeed other members of the council who aren't on the committee but would like to attend, wish to ask questions about the timetable and ask about risks, they're very welcome to do that in October.
On to my second question. Since Hart District Council fell below a 5-year housing land supply on 1st of May 25, developers have been submitting major applications outside of the local plan call for sites process. This parallel track risks weakening the council's ability to shape development strategically, as outcomes may now be driven by individual planning decisions rather than the full evaluation of sites through the local plan. Can the portfolio holder for planning policy therefore confirm from 1st of May 25 to date how many pre-apps, hybrid applications or full planning applications have been submitted for, and I've tried to narrow it down a little bit, developments of 50 or more dwellings, and the total number of dwellings that could be delivered across all such applications?
There have been 6 applications meeting that criteria. And there are, or that would deliver, if they're all built out, 3,485 homes.
Thank you for that answer. Given that number, how will the portfolio holder for planning policy ensure that a multitude of planning applications outside of the call for sites, presumably each with a potentially different timeline for decision, be effectively coordinated with the development of our own local plan so that the result is a balanced spatial development strategy across Hart?
I'm not aware you can. People can put in a planning application whenever they wish to, Councillor Farmer. And it's not the planning policy portfolio holders' role to get involved in planning applications in terms of determining when or who might submit them. All I can do is progress a local plan as soon as possible so that we can get back to having a 5-year land supply, which we had before the government arbitrarily doubled our housing numbers.
That finishes questions from members. And we move on to item 6 on the agenda, which is Chairman's announcements. There's a list in your papers of the events and appointments that I've been to since our last meeting. The one I would particularly like to highlight was on the 15th of July when I attended the Accessible Boating Association, which is in Odium. I had the pleasure of meeting Millie Stocks, who 40 years ago was the chairman of Hart District Council. Now in her 90s, she's still very active, and she used her year as chairman to actually form, to start the Accessible Boating Association. So there was actually photographs of her starting it all off 40 years before with the same chain of office. So that was, and it did make me think that perhaps in our final year of as a council, that it would be nice perhaps to think of some event to invite former members of the council back for a reception. But that will be the future chairman, I guess. Good. We'll move on to cabinet members' announcements, and we'll start by the leader of council, who's also the portfolio holder for strategic direction and partnerships, Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Chair. 2 quick announcements. First is, in case members are not aware, since the last meeting we had, that both Hampshire County Council and Portsmouth City Council have submitted a judicial review of the government's local government organisation plan. These will be heard and will be determined. I just want to reassure everyone, including those 2 councils, there is still good work going on across the board, and it's being dealt with separately from the work of LGR. The other is to say that we now have our first date for what's called the informal joint committee for Northern Hampshire. It's informal because we haven't had the structural change order yet, and the full committee will meet on the 29th of September.
Thank you. Now, the deputy leader, Councillor Radley, is not here this evening. Do you have any announcements on his behalf?
I do not.
Thank you. Portfolio holder for climate change and corporate services, Councillor Waterman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have one announcement. Our twice yearly update on the Climate Change Action Plan was reviewed by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee in June and approved by Cabinet in July. Full details of these reports are available on our website and in the minutes of those meetings. I would just like to draw the Council's attention to two specific points agreed by Cabinet. Our rollout of electric vehicle charging points has been interrupted as our selected provider has been taken over by another company, with two of our intended sites not yet implemented. We will continue to explore options to install EV charging in the Monarchus Lane car park in Hartley Wintney, but we have agreed not to pursue delivery of electric vehicle charging points at Blackwater Station Approach, as the site has proven complex and is no longer commercially viable. Cabinet has also agreed an annual budget of no more than £8,000 to allow the purchase of high integrity carbon credits to demonstrate the Council's accountability for any residual operational carbon emissions that we may need to address. Thank you.
Councillor Forsman, portfolio holder for digital communications, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. Just one tonight. We'll be conducting a residence survey across the district starting on the 1st of September for 6 weeks. Our survey is based on the LGA's recommended benchmarking questions. We've also added a few questions, service-specific questions for communications and climate change. This will be communicated in a variety of ways with links to the survey. The main method of response will be online, but there'll be paper copies available, and residents can contact the communications team for any other requirements. There'll also be a parallel doorstep survey working to achieve 500 responses by an independent company to make sure that we've got a statistically viable survey based on our demographics. So when it comes out, please circulate and encourage residents to engage. Results are expected to be published by the end of 2026. Councillors will be informed of headline results by committee reports and normal channels for wider audiences. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Forster.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry for asking your attention, but just a question on that. In order to make sure none of our more elderly residents who may not be online and may not proactively be aware of paper versions of the consultation being available, how will you communicate that to, for instance, some of our care homes and ensure that we get good coverage from a wide spread of our residents? And also, will young people under 18 be able to respond, and how will they be contacted?
Thank you, Councillor. Well, one of the means that we're going to communicate this is going to be Royal Mail door to door, which delivers to every household in the district. So I don't know about quite how that works when you get to a care home. And I can't answer the question specifically about the age of response, but I presume it's for everybody, but I can get that clarified.
Is this relating to this? Councillor Dunn.
Thank you. It's a direct question to just respond to the announcement. Given that we are, as a council, going to disappear in about 22 months' time now, could you perhaps clarify the aim of this survey and what will actually change within Herts based on the results?
Well, this will be the first time that we've conducted a survey using the LGA benchmarking questions, and this means that once we've done it, it's always good to ask your residents what they think about you. We'll be able to benchmark against other councils who are also using the same data sets. Does that answer your question?
You've got an answer. Okay. Okay, we'll move on to portfolio holder for development management, parking and waste services.
No announcements this month, Chairman.
Councillor Cockrell, portfolio holder for planning policy.
Unusually, because I had the questions, Mr. Chairman, I have nothing further to add in the cabinet announcements, what I've said earlier.
Leader Councillor Collins is away. Do you have any announcements on her behalf?
I do not, Chair.
And the same for Councillor Wells.
I do not.
Thank you. Item 8 is Chief Executive announcements. Have you any announcements to make?
Chairman, I've got no urgent announcements today.
Okay, in that case, we move on to item 9 in the agenda, which is minutes of the committees. Is pages 13 to 68 in your agenda pack. We start with the Development Management Committee meeting on the 27th of May. So just read through these, and unless somebody grabs my attention, I'll assume that we're okay to receive them. Cabinet on the 4th of June. Draft Cabinet minutes for the 2nd of July. Draft overview and scrutiny minutes of the 14th of July. Then Development Management Committee draft minutes of the 15th of July. At that meeting, there was an application in Reading Road in Hook, which was outside of the local plan, but we haven't received sufficient representations before this meeting. Therefore, that application is deemed to be granted. Thank you. Item 10. This is a paper in the name of the Chief Executive relating to local government reorganisation, but I understand Councillor Neighbour is going to introduce the paper.
Thank you, Chair. This really is a bit of oiling the skids, a bit of process, and I apologise that it even needs to be brought to us. But the monitoring officers from across Hampshire have got together and they believe we do actually need to give this permission before we can actually meet as the joint committee. So you can see there that basically we're asking that the Chief Executive be given delegation authority to agree that in consultation with our 3 representatives on the joint committee, the 2 members and the substitute, because that's across the political spectrum of this council. If there are any questions, either myself or the Chief Executive will answer.
Any questions? Are we content to receive this motion and accept it?
Second.
Okay, seconder. So Councillor Dawn first. Those in favour, please show. Any against? That's unanimous. Thank you. Item 11, we move to a motion to council, and I will invite Councillor Forster to introduce his motion.
Thank you, Chair. By way of an introduction, I'm sorry there are so many points on this motion, but I wanted it to be comprehensive. By way of an introduction, speeding and road safety is one of the top issues, according to many residents when they're surveyed. Speed indicator devices have been deployed by the councillor and give real-time feedback to drivers and critically log objective timestamp data on vehicle speeds and traffic volumes, which forms a foundation for future interventions, speed surveys, speed limit reviews, enforcement by the constabulary, as well as road safety improvements. Fleet is the most built-up settlement in Hart with the largest population, coupled with Church Crookham. They're the 2 largest areas accounting for roughly half.
Councillor Forster, sorry. What we need to do is just receive your motion initially, make sure we've got a seconder, and then I will give you plenty of time to speak in favour of the motion. I just need to make sure we've got a seconder first, which I'm sure we have.
Fine, I'll sit down and let someone second me.
Yeah, you have Councillor Dawn. That's fine. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I follow the right procedure.
Fine.
Now, is everybody happy for us to receive this motion without it being read out word for word? We've got the words on the screen. As you say, it's quite a long motion. So my apologies for interrupting you, but please continue.
Not at all, fully understand, and I'm glad you're following the process. So, as I was saying, Fleet and Church Crookham account for roughly half the population across Hart. A battery-powered SID, speed indicator device, is a portable, redeployable device, proven to be effective when redeployed every 2 weeks or so. And they can easily be relocated wherever speed or traffic volume is a concern. So it's an ongoing community resource. Indicative costs are roughly £3,000 to £4,000 all in, including the cost of purchase, the cost of licenses, whatever is needed. It's about £3,000 to £4,000. So the total cost I'm asking Hart to fund is £6,000 to £8,000. I want to address one area, particularly as Cabinet Member for Highways at Hampshire, in that I've had it confirmed by council officers that there isn't a budget line for SIDS of this nature in Hampshire. The casualty reduction funding is allocated against police casualty data, and it wouldn't be appropriate for them to redirect it where there are concerns on speeding, etc., or traffic volume, other than the recorded traffic casualty history. Hampshire has a policy exactly for speed indicator devices. The parish, the parish temporary speed signing policy and guidance, which I've got a copy here in case anyone wants to read it. It's also available online. It's designed so that the local tier, whether it's district or borough or parish, can acquire these units and is responsible for deploying them, owns them, and then looks after them, getting the benefit, as well as helping Hampshire support the districts in terms of casualty reduction, traffic improvements and highway benefits. So I'm asking that the 7 points, which is basically providing 2 of these units, one to Fleet and one to Church Crookham, if they're willing to take them and deploy them, as they have done in the past. But apparently we have, it seems, misplaced the previous speed indicator units that were deployed. And I think it would be beneficial for Hart to fund these and deploy them with the two areas.
Councillor Dawn, do you wish to speak now to reserve right to speak later?
I'll reserve the right to speak later. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. You probably saw I sent a note out earlier this morning, or the Chief Executive on my behalf, just to make sure that the debate flows well, to see if there were any likely amendments to the motion. And I received 2, and I suggest I asked those who wanted to raise those amendments to raise them now. And I'm going to invite Councillor Smith, because that was the first one that popped into my inbox. I don't know if you want to introduce your amendment, and then we'll see if Councillor Forster and his seconder wish to accept that as part of their motion.
Thank you, Chairman. My proposed amendment is that after the original numbered clause 7, add a new numbered clause 8, which is for those town and parish councils in Hart that do already operate their own speed indicator devices, provide immediate funding of an amount to cover the costs that were incurred in purchasing that equipment out of their town and parish precepts.
Thank you. Is it possible to put that wording up on the screen?
Not sure if I get to explain why, or do I?
Yeah, no, please do.
Okay. The reasoning is I'm not quite persuaded to even vote for the main motion yet. I'm not sure it's this council's responsibility to provide equipment and gather data in that way, or tell parishes to do so. I also hadn't seen until tonight the funding. Well, I haven't actually yet seen the funding source identified. I've seen the costs now, approximate costs given, but they seem low compared to what Hook Parish Council have had to fund. But we can get onto that in the debate itself. But my aim with the amendment is to fill the gap that's quite clearly been left. The current main motion nominates 2 named town and parish councils for receipt of speed indicator devices funded by this council. It also suggests that following this trial, any town or parish council that does not currently own and operate a SID could request one, again funded by this council. It's therefore only fair that those town and parish councils that have already purchased and operate their own SIDs, for example, the ones that I know of, Hook, Rotherwick, Mattingley, there are probably many more, could receive equitable treatment with funding that recompenses them for their previous investment and enables them to refresh that equipment if necessary. So as I say, although I'm not currently minded to support the main motion yet, at least with this amendment included, those town and parish councils that already operate SIDs would be treated equitably. Thank you.
So I'll see from the proposal whether you're willing to accept that as an amendment to the main motion, or you wish to comment on that?
I'd like to comment, if I may. I think the amendment is unnecessary, so I'm not willing to accept it insofar as item 7 specifically does offer to consider offering this to other parishes. It doesn't guarantee any funding. Multiple SIDS are appropriate in many areas and can be considered. So at any point, another council, another parish could come forward under the existing motion. I see no benefit from adding an extra clause on this basis other than hindering the district.
A point of order on that, if I may.
Well, I'll ask you which point of order it is, but if you're going to clarify.
But that's incorrect. The motion, as stated there, literally says to consider offering this to other parishes without SIDS. So it clearly doesn't currently allow parishes that have SIDS to be recompensed in any way or to have a replacement device.
No. So we're debating now the amendment. So I need a seconder to your motion. Thank you, Councillor Makepeace-Brown. Are there any other comments on the amendment, either for or against? Councillor Dawn.
Thank you, Chairman. I think just to make the point, the whole focus of Councillor Forster's proposal is the larger and more built-up areas of Hart, which is Fleet and Church Crookham. And while things have occurred, elsewhere in the villages, then there is an existing system for them to put in their SIDS and use them as many of us have done over the years.
Yes, Councillor Jage.
I'd just like to point out that Fleet and Church Crookham aren't the only built-up areas in Hart, which is what you said.
Are there any other comments on the amendment? Councillor Quarterman.
Yes, I'm also not entirely convinced of the relationship between built-up and urban areas and the problem of speeding on our roads. I think a lot of our more rural parishes have enormous problems with excess speed on their roads. Since I have become a county councillor, it has been probably the most talked about topic I've had when I discuss with the various parishes that I now represent, and to focus on just the problems of Fleet and Church Crookham is ignoring, I think, a whole swathe of other communities within our district who have an equally pressing need.
Councillor Makepeace-Brown.
Yes, I would hazard a guess that Hook is around about the same kind of size as Church Crookham. So from a size point of view, that doesn't quite stack up. I would also suggest that Councillor Quarterman's point about speeding only happening in built-up areas is incorrect. And I, on a different note, would suggest that it is unfair of this council to be looking at certain parishes and town councils over others when other parish councils have chosen to spend their own money to support the safety of their own residents, and then for us to bring in a motion and a policy that pays for what we're classing as larger parish and town councils to have their devices supplied and not recompense the ones that previously cared about the safety of their residents and paid for it out of their own pockets.
Councillor Forster, I'll take your earlier comments as whether you're accepting the amendment or not. So you've got your 3 minutes on this if you wish.
Yeah, a suggestion. It's useful having this debate and understanding it. And Councillor Smith made the point that his concern was that the clause 7 said without SIDS. So rather than making the change that he suggested, I would counter that and suggest that we just remove the without SIDS from clause 7.
Okay. But would be another amendment. So what we'll do first is we'll take a vote on the amendment as it stands. If there's a future amendment, then we can do that. But I'm going to ask people, this is voting for the amendment which is on the screen. So this goes along with as a new point 8 to the other 7. There may then be other amendments. So this isn't the final motion. This is just voting on the wording for number 8. So those in favour of Councillor Smith's amendment, can you please show? Yeah, it will be recorded. Okay, yeah, we're going to do a recording, so just in case it was unanimous. And those against? Okay, recorded vote then.
Councillor Axon. For Councillor Bailey.
Abstain.
Councillor Beattie. For. Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Butler. For. Councillor Clark.
Against.
Councillor Cockerell.
Against.
Councillor Crampton. For. Councillor Davies. Councillor Dawn.
Against.
Councillor Drage.
Abstain.
Councillor Farmer.
For.
Councillor Forster.
Against.
Councillor Hardy. For. Councillor Hiley. Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Kepper. For. Councillor Makepeace Brown. For. Councillor Neighbour.
For.
Councillor Oliver.
Against.
Councillor Quarterman.
Abstain.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Southern. For. Councillor Thomas.
For.
For. That's 16 votes for, 5 against and 3 abstentions.
So the amendment is carried. So we now have a new substantive motion, including item 8 within the motion. I also received about half an hour later, a second amendment from Councillor Neighbour. Councillor Neighbour, do you want to move your amendment at this point? And do you have a seconder?
Don't know. I'll have a second. We'll find out. Again, I have sent it to committee services, so I'm hoping it will be brought up. I also have to beg an indulgence that as we now have a new substantive motion that includes 8, I would need to amend 8 as part of my amendments. It doesn't flow otherwise.
Okay.
Apologies. So
we make that a bit bigger.
Yeah, it can make it a lot bigger, though, can you? Okay.
That's too small.
Somewhere in between.
I mean, in the old days, we'd have just printed it out.
Right. Okay, so the reason for my amendment is based on the fact that this is the responsibility of the Highways Authority. The cabinet member for the Highways Authority is here in the meeting and has moved the original motion. And I think it's a little bit rich to expect the district council to fund county council's duties.
Councillor Neighbour, so that I'm consistent.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you first to move the motion and then you can make your speech.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair. I'll sit down and hope I get a second.
And it's whether we can everybody read the lettering. So I think you might have to read it out, Councillor Neighbour.
Okay. I will need to amend 8. I apologise. Yeah. I'll have to attempt to amend 8. I apologise. So My version of 1 is to say allocate funding for the purchase of 2 solar-powered speed indicator devices, subject to Hampshire County Council providing match funding towards the cost of the devices and offering appropriate flexibility in relation to any licensing, permit or administration charges associated with their deployment and operation by parish and town councils in Hart. Subject to these conditions being met, the devices shall be purchased as soon as is agreed to be practical. 2, subject to the purchase devices proceeding under Resolution 1, number 2 then flows. 3, subject to the purchase devices proceeding under Resolution 1, 3 then flows. 4, should the devices be purchased and transferred, then the motion flows. 5, should the devices be purchased and deployed, request flows. 6, subject to Hampshire County Council confirming the arrangements referred to in Resolution 1 to instruct the Chief Executive of Hart as per the rest of 6. And 7, if the initial deployment proceeds and is successful, the remainder of 7. With 8, I would need to include if the initial deployment proceeds, I'd have to put subject to Hampshire County Council confirming the arrangement referred to in 1, because otherwise we would end up in a situation where we would be recompensing parishes who previously done it and not doing anything with anyone else going forward. It's just a consistency point, and I apologise. I wasn't aware you were there, so I hadn't consulted you on it. And I look for a seconder.
Yeah, Councillor Sutton.
I'd like to second that motion.
Thank you. Do you wish to reserve your right? Do you wish to speak?
My right.
Okay.
I'd like to reserve my right to speak.
Okay. You can now speak, yeah. Yes.
Point of information, sorry. Having checked our code of conduct, clause 17.6 specifies that an amendment to a motion must be relevant to the motion and may not have the effect of being a direct negative to the motion itself. That's what it says.
So,
as I said,
yeah.
If I may, please.
Yeah.
As I said in my introduction, Hampshire County's budget is prioritised to casualty reduction, and there is no budget that would be available on the basis of what Councillor Neighbour proposed. That then means that it is directly negative to the proposal because it cannot flow that the council match fund, that Hampshire County Council match fund is it. It's therefore a direct negative version in terms of an amendment, and that is unacceptable and not in line with our constitution.
One of the benefits of asking for the amendments earlier was to give an opportunity for me to ask the monitoring officer if there was any problems with the amendments in terms of the effect on the original motion. So
The answer is no, because the motion and the amendment that's passed in advance was relating to the motion as submitted on the information that was provided at the time. That's perfectly proper for Councillor Neighbour, even in the light of what he's heard. And that might be a debate that you have about whether Councillor Neighbour's motion should succeed, but it does actually negate the original purpose because the information you've got has come in subsequently during the debate and wasn't disclosed in advance. So it's not a negative, and members here can decide not to accept Councillor Neighbour's motion in the light of what Councillor Forster has clearly said is a problem, that the funding is not there. But this doesn't stop you having the debate in the first place, because Councillor Neighbour's motion, when passed through the process, was correct at the time and following the Constitution.
Okay, so we're on to a debate on this amendment. Can I remind everybody that everybody's got a chance to contribute? There's a 3-minute maximum limit, and our wonderful committee team will let you know if you're getting close to your 3 minutes. I've got Councillor Dawn who showed me your hand, and then oh, you've not spoken again. Sorry, go on.
Chairman, it was a question of clarification, to be honest, which I think goes before debate.
Is that a clarification on what was just given by the monitoring officer? Yeah.
Just to clarify the monitoring officer, I can't remember the exact words of the Constitution, but I believe that such a substantial rewriting of the original motion is beyond reasonable levels of amendment to the original motion. Please, could you clarify?
The answer is no, it doesn't, because it still keeps the statutory base of what the motion is talking about. It's not trying to stop the motion, other than the point made by Councillor Thorsten in the debate about it might have a negative effect. That's new information coming forward. But the Constitution says you can add words in and take words out. And that's what's happened on here. So if you read those in the totality, some of the wording is a bit more geared around the Hampshire County Council element of it all, but it's not actually driving in to try and stop the motion in its tracks. It's not trying to verse it. And if you look for most of the bits, 2 to 7, there are actually words at the beginning of them, which is for clarification purposes. So on that basis, it's legitimate.
I'm going to invite Councillor Neighbour to introduce his amendment. Well, is it a new point?
Yes.
Okay.
Appreciate what the Chief Executive said in his introduction, but it is clear through established policy, the Council Temporary Speed Signing Policy and Guidance, April 2026, is a published document on the website, that there is no budget and the policy specifies no matched funding.
Okay, so currently the Hart has no budget for this either. It's not stopping us having a motion. I'm going to ask Councillor Neighbour to introduce his amendment.
Thank you. So I think we all know from knocking on doors for the last few months just how important road safety is to all our residents. One road fatality in Hart is one too many. I know we all agree with that. But the local branch of local government which is responsible for highways is the county council. They should have the budgets to do this. If they do not, and I'm hearing they do not, well, that's very sad. I hope that the cabinet member for highways will take steps to address that this year. This motion is still a good motion. And what I'm seeking to do is to work in partnership with the county council to make sure that we can help the county council step up and provide this. We know many towns and parishes have already done this. One of the problems they have is the bureaucracy of the siting and the licensing administration. And I think this motion, as amended, would help all of us. I have to amend the item 8 because of consistency. If we didn't amend it and the match funding fell through, we would end up still paying for previous good works by other parish councils in isolation of what we're trying to achieve. We want a good system of speed indicator devices throughout the district where people are willing to help contribute towards them. And I think that's something we can all agree on. I think this motion will help us achieve that. We do not have a budget for this, but we are willing to work with the county to help provide it.
Councillor Thorne, I saw your hand raised. Was that to make the point of order, or were you wishing to contribute to the debate? It was about 5 minutes ago.
No, Chairman, it was the point.
That's fine. Yeah, Councillor Cockerell.
Just checking. Yeah, but there wasn't anyone before me. Earlier this year, it may have been March, it may have been April, not entirely sure when, I was asked a question by a member concerning speed indicator devices for Fleet and Church Crookham. And I was asked in my role as portfolio holder for planning policy, which previously this sort of thing might have come under, whether I would consider basically handing over the SID devices that Hart had to Fleet and Church Crookham and other parish councils. Very similar to the motion, in fact, very similar idea. We've done that. We've given the 3 working SIDs to the parish and town association for Hart. I am, those of you who know me well will obviously know that I am a town councillor for Yateley. I've asked, and yes, I know from both Hart and Yateley that has been done. So we have fulfilled what we've been asked to do so far. I'm happy to support the amendment or the amended motion as it stands, because I do think Hart should be helping where it's necessary. I would just point out, as has already been mentioned, that several of our town and parish councils have done this themselves. Yateley did it. We purchased new SIDS, paid for by a grant from the Police and Crime Commission. And I believe Eversley have, and others have as well. So I gently say to those parish and town councils that wish to have SIDS, that it is up to them, if they wish to do it, to contact where you get them from. I believe the police or Hampshire, or indeed the Heart Association, although the ones we're given to them are quite old, and can arrange it. I'm very happy as a member of Hart District Council to support that where we can, and I'm sure our county councillors will be more than happy to help with some of the bureaucracy that I know has stifled places like Eversley in putting these places up, putting these SIDS up, even when they've got hold of them. But, you know, it shouldn't be for parish and town councils to come to us to say, please, can we have some SIDS? They are there, they can be used, they have the powers to do it. So I'm happy to support this. But I don't think we should be, I don't think we should see the parish and town councils as being powerless in this. They can do it if they want to. And if Fleet and Church Crookham are really keen on this, you know, they could have come to us without this motion, frankly, and said, could you help?
Councillor Forster.
Some interesting points raised.
Sorry, I'm point of order, Chairman. I know we don't have debate. I apologise, Steve.
Yeah.
I know we do not have debates very regularly in this chamber. We all are a little out of our practice. But when someone is the remover of the original motion, they don't speak during the debate. They sum up the debate before the vote is put.
So since we're going to take yours as closing comments, but since then, Councillor Smith has waved to me. Yeah.
Only because we're still on the this amendment, and so I was just confirming that with respect to how it affects clause 8 that I added, I understand the reason for the rewording, and I'm happy with that. The whole point of my amendment was to have equitable treatment for those who do and don't have their own SIDS already. Thank you.
Okay, now I've got Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to make a few comments in support of this amendment. In terms of SIDS, and I get your point, Councillor Cockerell, because we're actively using one of your SIDS to look at speeding in Crookham Village. The parish is very happy to have taken that on, and their issue is Hampshire, a bit like Eversley. You know, citing, bureaucracy, and their intention is to look at trying to put a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit through the street in Crookham Village, if you know that. And I had to warn them that of the 40 or so applications that have gone through since Hampshire had their new policy, only one has been successful, because it does take an awful lot of effort and also money when you put a new speed limit. It is a legislative process, so there is legal requirements. But the SID itself, I fully support the application and putting SIDS in our villages and our towns for speed awareness training of drivers so they know what they're doing. So I think it is a very positive road safety feature for villages to get hold of these. But I think we need to engage Hampshire County Council, because unless they're engaged with time and money, they will continue with their bureaucratic process that stifles the useful use of the data that comes out of SIDS. So that's why I fully support actually asking them to find a budget line, as we will have to find a budget line to purchase these SIDS if this goes through. So I hope you will support the amendment.
Anybody else wish to make a comment? Okay. We need to take a vote on the amendment first. Yeah, you can now summarise. I'm learning on the job, obviously.
Thank you. I'll pick up. First of all, I take offence at Councillor Oliver and previous councillors saying it's a bureaucratic process. It is a legal process. And as a magistrate, Councillor Oliver should understand that legal processes take time, particularly when that process involves police consultation and consultation with the providers of the lighting columns or relevant item that it's going to be attached to. So that can't be short-tracked. It has to follow the correct process. It is an established, proven process with many delivered in a timely fashion. Calling it bureaucracy is poor, unless he's implying that magistrates are bureaucratic. In terms of a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, that is up to individual areas to determine whether they want it. And again, it's relatively simple, following changes that were made for any area to define that it wants a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. Sadly, some want to implement that as a mandatory policy across all built-up areas. But luckily, that vote, which recently took place at full council, was voted down. In terms of the ones that were given, I actually inquired of both Fleet Town Council and Hart where the SIDS were. I couldn't get an answer to where the SIDS were that we used to own. Fleet Town Council said Hart had it. Hart said they didn't know where it was. Not that Fleet Town Council had a SID, they just didn't know where it was. So it seems that the ones we've had have gone missing. Perhaps they can be identified and we can find them. Because if they can be tracked down and if they're working, actually, this motion isn't necessary. In terms of the motion, I've made clear that if this motion amendment gets voted through, because there is no budget, it will not happen. And picking up on a couple of councillors' comments, there is no budget for SIDS because that budget is spent where there is a proven need for casualty reduction. And to find budget would need to take it away from somewhere else, whether that was from the casualty reduction programme or something else. And I think that would be a very, very bad thing to do. I'm sure most of you would agree that the focus on the priorities that have been identified for the funding for casualty reduction and for highways improvements should be left exactly where it is, not allocated. But I would make one offer to Councillor Oliver. One of the things that county councillors have is a budget of £5,000 a year that they can give if they want to. And I, for instance, gave mine to the Fleet Speedwatch scheme in the past and fully funded the speed monitoring equipment they used. Many county councillors do give grants to parishes which can be used for SIDS. So he could perhaps use his funding for this.
20 seconds remaining.
Thank you. So I think moving this motion as amended would actually mean that it will fall and this will not happen. So voting for this amendment means you are voting against providing SIDS and against improving road safety in our area. I would therefore urge you not to support this amendment.
Thank you. We're moving to a vote now because it was the closing comments. But would it be helpful for council if we have a point of information in terms of where those SID machines are, either a written response or if you know where they are now?
It was a good 6 months ago since Councillor Forster raised the question of the SIDS, and the search did find them eventually, and they've been discussed at the Hart District Association of Town and Parish Council meeting, and in an interesting discussion, they voted to have one of the SIDS given to Crookham Village Parish Council, and that's gone. One of them's gone to ODM, and the other one is available for Fleet Town Council. All machines have been checked to run. There were 4. As you cry, that 4th one is irreparable. It's irreparable. it's a German machine, has to be sent back to Germany for what it is. But the 3 other ones are working and were tested and are available for launch.
Thank you, and thank you for that information. It's a shame that that hasn't been communicated despite actually being repeatedly asked for, and that wasn't, and that information wasn't provided. But on the basis that Church Crookham have been given a SID, and that there is one available for Fleet Town Council, I think that that means that there will be the 2 SIDs that I've been asking for, and therefore there may be no need to proceed with the motion at all.
Okay. Right. Well, unless Councillor Neighbour wishes to withdraw the amendment, we shall move to a vote.
The mover of the original motion has suggested withdrawing the motion. He's entitled to do that if his seconder agrees.
Look at Councillor Dawn. They're looking at each other.
I'll support withdrawal on the basis there's been new information that has come to light, which is a shame because I such love to speak.
Okay.
So, sorry, Chairman. Councillor Forster made a comment that one had already been given to Church Crookham. It hasn't.
Crookham Village.
It's Crookham Village and Odium and one to Fleet. So Church Crookham would not have them.
I think the point was it was the Hampshire Association who were represented by each of the councils that made the decision where they were allocated. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, if you and your seconder are withdrawing the motion, then the motion is withdrawn, which means we can move on to the next item in the agenda. Reports from outside bodies, I think we've got there. Councillor Storm, I know you've got some good news to share.
I have got some good news, and hopefully you would have seen the press release that came out. Very pleased that Hart has been awarded the Gold Certificate of the Armed Forces Covenant Employer Recognition Scheme, and that's the highest accolade you can achieve as an Armed Forces Covenant recognised employer. And it's very much down to the work of our officers, particularly Mrs. DM, just to anonymise but recognise the great work that they've done. And Councillor Noble did speak to me a little bit beforehand, just to ask how we managed to do this at such a low budget level. And it's mainly just by doing the right things in the right way and putting a little bit of effort in by the officers and indeed councillors to make sure that we recognise what's been happening. We allow some of our members of staff to do the right things in terms of supporting cadets and so on. And the countryside team here at Hart have been very active supporting new cadets that are starting up at Courtmore, and they've started to grow very effectively over the 2 years they've been running, and it's brilliant to see. But they're also very happy to support officers and indeed members in the work that they do on the military covenant. So it's a great result. We're very, very pleased, and thank you to everyone who has supported and enabled that. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your role as the member who leads that. Thank you. Are there any other reports from outside bodies? Thank you, Councillor Southern.
I attended the Thames Basins Heath.
You want to? Yeah.
Attended the Thames Basins Heath Special Protection and Management Committee. I submitted my report through the internet, so I don't want to. And all councillors have been advised of it. We're in the middle of Heath Week at the moment, which seems to be going very well indeed. And I encourage people to continue to use the heaths effectively but responsibly, particularly in this hard, very, very dry weather. Any glass, cigarettes or anything like that are very, very dangerous indeed. So please, please use the heats, enjoy them, enjoy Heath Week, but for goodness sake, be careful.
Thank you. Any other reports? I don't see anybody trying to grab my attention. So the next meeting is on Thursday, the 24th of September. And that being the end of the business, the meeting is now closed.
I was in the beginning.